Yes, we are live. Hello, everyone. Happy to have you today for this panel on blockchain gaming on Wax. We're really happy to have our wonderful speakers today. We are joined by Martin, Ben, and Dallas, all prominent actors in the Wax gaming ecosystem to talk about all things we need to know when we game developers, we need to consider Wax as the blockchain of choice for blockchain gaming. But before we start, we'd like to give the floor to our guest speakers for a brief introduction of themselves. So I would say, Martin, would like to kick off with a brief intro of yourself.
Yes, thank you. Second time being here. So we are a blockchain game alliance member, and the company is AtomicHub with PingGG behind it, and we are a marketplace. So I am Martin, and doing the partnerships, collaborations as a business development manager for our team. Yes, thank you.
Great, perfect. Dallas, your turn. Could you tell us more about you?
Sure. Yeah. So my name's Dallas Johnson, and I'm the chief engineer over at Alien Worlds. Alien Worlds is one of the biggest gaming dApps and dApps in general across all blockchains. And yeah, it's focused around NFTs, a mining game, and then gearing up towards releasing a big DAO feature that we have in there as well. And yeah, my job, chief engineer, is pulling together all the technical aspects and trying to keep things running.
Awesome. We're always very happy to have Alien Worlds because you participate a lot of the blockchain game alliance ecosystem. Actually, just 2 days ago, we had the chance to have you on the last BGA meetup as a sponsors to help us help the other members to meet physically in Paris. So it was a great event, and we really thank all the team for being there. And last but not least, I would like to let Ben, can you introduce yourself as well?
Yes, hello. First time here. Very pleased to be here. I'm the founder of NFTHive. We are a marketplace and also a consultant for development on Wax. We also run Wax Market Cap, which is like an analytics tool for secondary market sales, drop sales, and everything on Wax. And yeah, we met you at NFT.nyc, and I think we had a very pleasant talk. And that's when you invited us, and very happy to be here.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to count on your expertise and to have this call together and try to go through the Wax ecosystem for blockchain gaming. And actually, as you may know, you may be used to seeing also BlockMind teams with Ray and Roran. Roran, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Awesome,
and Ray,
awesome.
how are you?
All good.
All right.
Awesome. So we're gonna start. Thank you guys for being here, for preparing the chats with our speakers. And I would like to start with a conversation around the visions. One to Martin first. One of your ambition is to help guide the gaming and the IP industry to the Web3 age. Being at the forefront of discovering the utility of NFT blockchain technology for game and IP developers, and guiding Web2 parties along the way. What is your vision on the value of NFTs and blockchain technology in its current form for game developers? And what is your vision on their value in the projected features?
Yes, thank you for that question. The vision, I think it's like you have two sides, NFT and technology, the blockchain technology. And I want to split that. On the blockchain technology, I think it's a pretty known thing by now, but it solves a major issue, the trust issue, besides many more. And on the NFT side, that's actually in that transaction that I can have a trustless transaction now. We have actually an NFT as an asset that I can send to someone. So it's like two things. And right now we're seeing, and we talk to many Web2 companies, also Web3 companies that are looking to get into the gaming space. And we want to guide them into this space and provide the tools. And the vision that we have for it right now is, if you're a developer on Google Play Store, game developer, or on Steam, on Apple, you are in a locked-in system, and you will have to pay 30% to them. And so you're basically locked in. So, and the users that you have as part of your game, they will interact with the game, purchase assets, but they never really own it. They can never really sell it. So there's only really a primary market. And what we see is that blockchain and NFTs, they enable a whole range of new business models. Yeah, so suddenly we are able to do secondary market, and as a game, I can have a whole economy around that game. And secondary markets, they enable the primary market because I can resell my item. So it lowers the financial barriers to get into this space. That's definitely one part of it. We also, like for the future, we believe it will be like tapping in all kinds of industries, but for now, gaming will be at the forefront. So game developers, like with mobile, they will push the whole technology. Yeah, so they are developing, they're tapping into AR, VR, metaverse, and like connecting everything. So one major part that I'm personally seeing is we're connecting different games, we're connecting assets. I can use one asset in different games, and it's not like isolated systems. And that's very appealing to users because it brings a lot of utility to the game. Yeah, for example, Alien Worlds, I believe you're on not just one blockchain, but you are on several blockchains. So that's pretty awesome to just be able to switch around. And we see that approach happening a lot. There are probably thousands more points, and I'll catch up on that. But thank you for the question for now.
Awesome, great. Thanks, Martin. It really shows that this new way of going about ownership and opening up markets creates also possibilities for community development, etc., and also for the participation on that. And that actually leads me to a question that I had in mind for Ben, because Ben, I think it was your very first live interaction that I saw, where you put yourself forward as a candidate for IOG candidate for the WEX office inspector. That is quite interesting to me, because what is actually the importance of this council for WEX? And why was it for you personally important to take an active role in that? And I'm just curious, what's your vision on public participation with blockchain development and governments as a whole?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I think the role of the office is very important for WEX and the blockchain model that we have. So we're running a delegated proof of stake model, which means that the community is voting on the block producers. And this concept is not new. We have seen this on EOS and Tron before. They are using delegated proof of stake as well. But you quickly run into problems because on the one hand, the community does not care that much about gathering all the information for themselves. So what are the VPs doing? How are they performing? It's like out of their scope a little bit. There's an incentive for token holders to vote for the best block producers, but we've seen it on other chains that it's not really happening unless you build, for example, proxies where they can delegate their vote to, and if they have information on what's actually happening. And that is what the OIG on WEX is doing. They are writing monthly reports on block producer performance and block producer development, like what we are actually building for WEX. And they put out a monthly report to the community give a score, and based on that, the community can actually make an educated choice in who to vote for. And I think this is really important to aggregate this information. And when I first learned about that, there was not a lot going on Wax. So we had, it was very early, the mainnet just launched. We had small marketplace, we had one asset standard, and that was developed, as I learned, by other block producers. So all the products that started appearing on Wax very early on were put out by block producers. And I was curious on how they got where they are, how they got started on Wax, producing blocks. And that's when I learned that we have this council, and we had 3 members already. And when the first election came around, yeah, I got in as a candidate, and since I was very early and known to the community, they voted for me, and that was a pretty interesting and enlightening job to learn how this all works together.
Thank you. Great. Yeah, it's a new way of interaction, right? That this blockchain creates, right? New possibilities on that and working together. And when we're thinking in that direction, often the word metaverse comes up, and that makes me think of alien worlds there. So this is a question for you, Dallas, because alien worlds is self-described as a metaverse, but then also defines quite clearly from its own perspective that the metaverse is a digital space where peer-to-peer interaction happens within a single environment. But when I was looking around for other ways of looking at what is metaverse and the definition of metaverse, what comes up most prominently is of course Meta of Mark Zuckerberg, where they're already a bit iffy about how and what. But it seems to be that the focus is maybe even more on the metaverse as a time when basically immersive digital worlds become the primary way that we live our lives and spend our time. So it's really a crazy idea. I should not put those kind of, but I feel like, wow, what the idea that the reality of the digital is more important than that of the physical. Can you elaborate on what makes Alien Worlds a metaverse, and what technical features make a blockchain game a metaverse, and why it's important? And maybe a side note, because of how I asked the question also, what is your personal idea on the definitions put forward by Meta of Mark Zuckerberg?
Sure. Well, I guess you could start with by thinking of Facebook and their approach to the metaverse. So if you think Facebook, their business model is to get attention, get eyeballs, and they basically trade in people's attention, and they can sell that through advertising and more attention and get people's eyeballs looking at things that they want them to look at. Through that system, they can socially interact and entertain each other, whatever it might be, as we call it, a social network. So that's great when you're in their system and all you want to do is socialize. And that's what Facebook have done a pretty successful job at doing. But if we think into the real world, we also interact and we also socialize in real life. And we're now evolving to a digital space where we can do that post-COVID and everything else. And so a digital space makes more sense to do that. But a crucial thing we do in the real world is that we're trading economic value, and we're trading assets. And so whether that's a non-fungible asset like this unique and special pen, you could think of as there's only one unique pen like this. But then money, you also trade money and exchange that for time. And that's like a fungible asset we have there. So when we bring that into the digital space, a blockchain makes a lot more sense. And so that's where we bring in fungible assets and non-fungible assets. And then we bring that into a space where we can interact in a free-form way that we don't necessarily tell people what they have to do. So with Alien Worlds, we've created we've taken the space where people come together and interact in communities or groups, and we've taken it from the angle of the economic perspective. So we've got the mining attribute, which brings people into the game and allows a type of wealth distribution through mining. And like we have the analogy in the real world where we work to earn our money, and then with those we can buy things with it, with NFTs, and then from that we can come together and organize into groups, which is the DAO aspect, which we're bringing live very soon, doing final touches on testing and everything with that. But that's where we can see the mirror of real life, where people come together with their assets, with their things, and organize into groups and do who knows what. And so I think of the metaverse as an economic place on the blockchain, that is, an economic place where groups of people can come together, self-organize, and then do all sorts of things. We don't know necessarily what all those things are going to be, but that's the nature of a metaverse. And we provide the tools, they provide the people and the ideas and the inspiration. We'll give them some seed ideas with some games and some initial activities they can do to help kickstart people and get them involved. But the key thing in the metaverse for us is not so much just the game we're creating, but the ability that it creates for communities and people to come together and collaborate, get involved, earn income, meet people, and come together and do all sorts of interesting things, which we are barely just scratching the surface on.
Actually, I have a question that I'd like to extend to all three of you, starting with Ben. Wax is actually one of the major blockchains, but people often think of Binance Smart Chain, Solana, Ethereum when they think of gaming, right? What do you consider to be the most exciting feature of Wax, and what do they enable you to do? And as a bonus, if there's anything you'd like to see anyone else build on Wax, I'd love to know it too. So, Ben?
Sure. I think the most exciting feature of Wax is, when it comes to gaming especially, is that you can actually develop the smart contracts on chain and interact with them in a live way. Like you can actually have in-game actions that are performed on the blockchain. You can open, for example, a chest or have an achievement or something, and that is something that can happen directly on chain and therefore trigger some other actions which are directly linked to your game. For example, if you open a chest in the game and find some NFTs that you then want to equip and use, you can do that on Wax. I don't think that's possible anywhere else. I haven't seen that in that capacity. You would definitely run into high costs with transaction fees and possibly delays, because everything on Wax is happening like in 0.5 seconds. And yeah, so I haven't seen this anywhere else, and I think that would be the most impressive feature that Wax has to offer.
Thank you. Martin, please.
That's a difficult question, because there are actually a few that I pretty much like, and there are great chains out there, and I also like what other projects are building, really. But I think Wax, what stands out the most about it is just the insane transaction volume that it's happening on Wax every day. 50% of all transactions are happening on Wax. If you head over to the industry overview on DappRadar, and 42% that's just out also by DappRadar in the industry report of the entire Web3 gaming user base is on Wax. And I think there's a reason for that. Like Ben said, extremely fast, extremely scalable, and it's not even sweating. Like I think in January or February, there was an airdrop to celebrate the milestones of the Wax ecosystem. And currently Wax has somewhere around 30 million blockchain accounts, but they airdropped 10 million NFTs to all the accounts. And that just went like that, like nothing broke, nothing happened. No one talked about it. Of course, people talked about it, but it didn't like splash like you would expect if something broke. So it's kind of a fun fact on that note. But I like the scalability and zero gas fees, carbon neutrality, easy onboarding, and a great community. I think there are quite a few on that programming language. Then so Wax uses C++. I think that's also a pretty good one, actually. We can talk about it later.
Thank you. Dallas?
Yeah, sure. So I agree with everything that Ben and Martin have just said about that. The interoperability between smart contracts, because everything's on the blockchain, means that we can deploy some game and deploy some NFTs in Alien Worlds, but then someone else in a different game can read our tables from the Alien World smart contracts and integrate some of that logic into their game. It all happens on chain. It's all got the security of everything on chain. But that's also the case with any EOS.io based blockchain, and there's a few EOS.io blockchains out there. So we're lucky that we can also deploy those things across to those chains if we want to and be multi-chain in that direction. But a thing that Wax brings probably more specifically to the table is the focus on Wax with the OIG, where your guilds are very much focused on not just that they can do blocks, but also what value they're providing to the ecosystem in building dApps onto the ecosystem and being rewarded for that, and then having a focus on bringing value onto the chain rather than just have an empty chain which is running beautifully. So there's that value there. Also, the onboarding experience and the resource model where you've got replenishing fees every 3 days enables, with some careful wallet and manipulation and strategic thinking by the dApp runners, you're able to operate a game or a metaverse and all these things to the point where your users can almost forget they're running on a blockchain. It is fast, it's super quick, they're not having to pay fees on every transaction, and everything happens. And ultimately, I think for blockchain to really be successful and get mass adoption, it needs to be fast and it needs to be effectively free from the end user's perspective, as we see on Web2, successful Web2 platforms. And people need to almost forget they're using really difficult technology, or basically the technology needs to stop being difficult, and just so they can enjoy the experience of playing a game or being part of a metaverse or whatever they're doing on there.
I actually have one more technical point to add to all that, which is true, and Dallas just mentioned that in the interaction of the smart contracts, which is also possible. And then we, of course, have to mention the NFT standard of Wax, which Martin's team has developed, which I think, compared to other NFT standards out there, is pretty unique in ways that all the NFT metadata is on-chain, stored in tables, and some attributes can actually be updated. So you can have gaming items that that based on whatever they have done in the game can be upgraded, like level ups or power ups, or need to be recharged or whatever. Everything is happening on chain, and I don't know if there's anywhere else where that's possible. Like NFTs can actually get used, updated, the data can be read in games, and that's a pretty important and unique feature that Wax offers.
So Wax really is your blockchain of choice, right? Basically, the only blockchain that can handle the growing number of transactions while also keeping NFTs affordable, while noting that collectibles in packs and unpacking have not worked well on other chains for some of your partners. Then what is the technical difference between Wax and the other blockchain that makes Wax more suitable for NFT features, such as unpacking of NFTs?
Yeah, I think that's had a lot to do with the block producer performance that we've mentioned. So they are getting evaluated. We are constantly incentivized to improve the tech that we're using. We are also all cooperating to make things faster and work smoother. We have recently determined the order in which the block producers operate, so they can communicate faster with each other, and that of course is all being overlooked by the overseen by the OIG, and the other major factor is that transaction fees are kept at 0, and the block times are always 0.5 seconds. And the way that is possible is that we physically limit the number of transactions to the server capacity, and then we say those who stake more resources get a certain number of transactions per day. And that works also for smart contracts. Smart contracts can stake resources for their users and boost their users. So if you have, for example, an unpacking event that is, I don't know, opening 30,000 to 100,000 packs at the same time, that smart contract would make sure that the resources are available, that Wax can, I think, I don't know, it has never been tested, but I think they can do more than 9,000 transactions per second, and so can definitely be handled. So when you have an unpacking event, first of all, hundreds of thousands of people are trying to get the packs, trying to buy the drop. Then, depending on how it's implemented, they can start unpacking immediately, or there's like a delay. But once the unpacking is unlocked, you will have an on-chain transaction that opens the pack, and then a random number generator is called to determine the odds, and then NFTs are usually transferred from pools, from in-pack pools to the user wallets, and sometimes there are 30 to 50 cards in one pack, and those are all transactions that have to be handled. And this can only be done if the fees are flat 0, and you will not get, like, we see this on other chains, if there's the activity is rising and also the transaction fees are rising, and then you can pay more transaction fees to get your stuff faster. That's not happening on Wax. Everything is taking place at the same rate. Everything costs the same, and yeah, so that's really necessary when you do unpacking. Otherwise, it would just spiral. So the activity will explode, and then the fees will explode, and the users are sitting on transaction. We saw this with tops going to AWAX, I think. They had to halt like the unpacking because they had to process the transactions first, the pending transactions, and it was very messy. And on Wax, it's usually not even taking a sweat, you know.
Maybe for me to finish this up, Dallas, I've unpacked some Alien Worlds land packs. You guys have a lot of users, a lot of transactions. How do you experience Wax as one of the biggest games on Wax?
So yeah, it's for us. Yeah, we certainly push the limits, and we certainly take up a fairly sizable portion of the bandwidth, the available bandwidth. So when we think of, there being effectively 0 fees, sometimes that makes it sound like it's too good to be true. And to be fair, you know, there's a finite amount of CPU and bandwidth, but the way that Wax and these Wax blockchain is designed is to maximize the available hardware to get the maximum throughput in there. So rather than just trying to put some like fake proof of work in there just to slow things down, to call it, we're going to make it more secure, it's very much maximizing the throughput so you can get the best and the most out of it. And certainly some of the actions we do with our with the mining or the pack opening or the various land allocations, land NFTs, and the big volumes for things we do end up using a lot of the resources, and in order to get access to that share of the computing and the resources, we're having to stake quite a large amount of wax to be able to ensure that we have that resourcing power and RAM available to us to do that. It is awesome that we can do that, and the amount of computing we can do on a blockchain and not have to offload it into scripts. And we have had that share of things, because what you often will do in a blockchain architecture is you'll have some things that run off chain in a cloud function or a Node.js script on a server somewhere, and then it does pre-compute, and then it just dumps some stuff into a smart contract as the end result. Because Wax is so powerful and able to do computation so efficiently and effectively, and with that security guarantee, then we can, in fact, there's some scripts I've actually rewritten into the C++ smart contracts, deployed them onto the Wax blockchain, so then I just don't have to worry about it. And I can sleep better at night knowing that this particular process runs securely on a smart contract every day, and I can just forget about it. So for us, it actually provides me with peace of mind, provides me with good night's sleep, knowing that I don't have to stress about certain things which I would need to secure otherwise if they're off-chain. And it just works. And it's run by, part of the reason why it works so well is that the block producers who are running this, so you've got the 21 main block producers plus all the backup block producers as well, are some of the best blockchain engineers in the world. And they're running a system which is cutting edge and pushing hardware to its limits, and it's been doing that consistently for 3+ years. And a lot of these people have been doing that across Wax, Talos, and EOS, and those multiple blockchains. So they're really well practiced in running this very similar architecture in very in different circumstances and environments around the world. So it just works for us, is why we love using it.
Thank you. And actually, one more to just finish this up. Martin, then we've had two views on Wax, and of course, AtomicHub is the biggest NFT marketplace on Wax. How is that experience for you, and how would you compare the Wax user experience compared to Ethereum when it comes to, for example, NFT marketplaces? Because one of the things, for example, with Wax that you do have to do is stake Wax for computing power. How do you feel that impacts your users?
So I agree to the points that Ben and Dallas already said. In terms of user experience, I think that touches on the most exciting things that we also like about Wax. But if you just focus on AtomicHub or the Atomic Assets standard that has currently 290 million assets created, it's very easy to use it. So what we try to deliver is, and our users like that, is a Web2 experience on blockchain. Like Dallas said, like users don't even need to know that they are on a blockchain there. Yeah, so it's basically just interacting with the market, trading peer-to-peer. Soon you will be able to buy NFTs with Apple Pay, Visa. That's just a matter of weeks, just like on any other online shop. So we're trying to achieve that. For any larger company, gaming studio, or a serious business, they will not go on an infrastructure where users will have to deal with all of these things. They will just not do that, not for a mainstream application. Another factor is zero costs for interacting on the blockchain, carbon neutrality, again. And also what's very important is that we do checks on projects. Yeah, so everyone can say, hey, I'm a game developer, here's my game, buy it, play it, and be a user. Everyone can say that. So in order to protect the community, and that's very important, again, for gaming studios, because they bring their users in, we need to do checks. So there is KYC and some basic checks that ensure a level of trust, a level of credibility. Of course, there can be always bad actors, right? But still, I think this is something that differentiates to some other chains or marketplaces. And also on that note, on some other marketplaces, let's say you're a gamer and you have your asset and you want to sell it, so you actually have to put it in a contract on the market and you can't use it from then on. So it's up for sale. On the Atomic Assets standard, it's never like that. You can just use it, you put it up for sale. It's like two-sided trade offers. If someone buys it, then it leaves your inventory. So just a more smooth experience. Maybe one outlook that's pretty significant for gaming companies or game devs that will improve the experience, user experience on Wax and AtomicHub pretty much. Is like for game devs, the question is, how do you connect your game to the blockchain, right? So how do you let your game interact with all the data on the chain? And the solution that we're seeing most often is in placing an API in between. And that's sufficient for most of the cases, but it introduces also a lot of issues like scalability, finality. You have to maintain the entire system. There are new versions and all of that. You have people that maintain it. And the solution is to have a native SDK where your blockchain game talks directly to the blockchain. And that is actually coming for Wax, and it's going to be exclusive to Wax for some set time for Unity. So that's pretty interesting. And I think from there, we will see also very interesting games coming after some time.
And do you feel that Wax is getting to the point where you can, as teams, kind of unify and put together these tool sets? Or standards, basically?
So can you rephrase that question, please?
Right. So as you said, implementing ways to really get games going on Wax, you need to streamline some things, right? Do you feel like that's getting to the point where you technically, as teams or as a Wax ecosystem, get to the point where the barrier to entry for outside studios or developers is quite low? Because the for example, the Wax developer community is relatively small compared to something like Ethereum, Solana, or even smaller blockchains like Near. Well, the user numbers are so much higher, right? So in that sense.
Yeah, there has been a lot of focus on the B2C side, on the user base, on UX. I can only speak for AtomicHub, but I'm also having my eyes open in the UX ecosystem. There's a lot of focus on improving user experience for the users. And I think that worked out. That's what we're seeing in the user numbers. And we're shifting the focus and working heavily on providing a suite of tools. And I think we've been seeing this. There is interest from wallet companies, interest from RPC node providers, API providers. People want to move into this space, building tools for the creators. And yes, that's very important. And I think we are on the way there. That said, anyone who wants to start developing on Wax can reach out. And there are already ways to do this in a supported ways. And there are documentations and examples and all of that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Martin. Actually, coming back to you, Dallas, you already mentioned that before, but just to elaborate on that matter, Alien Worlds is a multi-chain game. We talked about that just before, with each game element having its own blockchain, stretch over Wax, Binance, Ethereum. What is the purpose of this multi-chain strategy? What are the unique features of Wax in this trio of blockchains? And why was it necessary to hide Binance and then Ethereum aside of Wax?
Sure. So I guess the decision to introduce Binance and Ethereum would have been, it was before my time, in fact. So I say would have been, I can't say was for sure, but it's, Wax by far gives us a lot of technical advantages, and we've gone through a lot of those on the call already. But there was a lot of this was being built throughout the last crypto winter, and when people, you know, were losing faith in certain areas of blockchain, were losing some faith in the Wax ecosystem, not from a technical perspective. There's a lot of very devoted technical people still involved, and they stuck around. But people need to eat, and the financial side of it is an important factor here. And we saw the same with EOS and Wax and Telos, which share a similar DNA, in fact, a very similar DNA, very cross-compatible DNA. And so the decision to expand across to other blockchain systems, such as Binance and Ethereum, of course, is to get access to those other communities of people, and the extra liquidity in there. And we've got a lot of people who've been able to earn a lot of wealth in Alien Worlds just by playing the game, and it's changed their lives and taken them from a place where, you know, they were earning a very small amount of money to be now quite rich and quite well off, and to give them a means to be able to be movable and mobile from Wax into Binance or Wax into Ethereum was an important feature that we wanted to open the doors up, and not be tribal and say we want to stick to our own chain, but break down the barriers and realize that these chains can intercommunicate, and we don't need to hate the other guys. We can work with the other guys and try and give them scalability where they don't have scalability, and they can give us liquidity where we might not have liquidity. And these sorts of arrangements are opened up by having multi-chain strategies.
Awesome. That straight up leads me to another question that we had in mind for the time being, because just getting into that community side of things, you're talking about some of the benefits of having those 3 chains, etc. But just strictly talking community-wise, can you compare for us the relative activity between the Ethereum, the Binance Smart Chain, and the Wax community?
Well, if you compare the transactions, it's almost, you wouldn't even be able to see it on a graph. Like, the difference is so big. So and we've covered the reasons, like technical reasons. You can just do a lot of transactions and move a lot of assets around so easily on Wax, and it's very easy. So the user friction is almost not there. So on Binance Chain, it is cheap. The fees are cheap, but it's still a fee-based system, similar to Ethereum. Of course, on Ethereum, it's expensive to do any transfer. You know, it comes down when the market's down, and of course, and people lose a bit of interest, but it's expensive to move stuff and do anything. So as a result, you end up having more of a community, the community that gets involved on those other chains, and certainly Binance would be more action than we get on Ethereum for, you know, the fees reason. But even then, the people that we see, the numbers are quite low in comparison to Wax, and the types of users that are getting involved there are more looking for a financial benefit from their transaction. It's costing them a bit of money to do that transaction, whether it's, like in this case, it's joining a mission where you lock up your Trillium in a mission for a period of time, anywhere from 2 weeks to, I think, 3 months is the longest, and then you'll get a reward payment at the end of that for going on that mission, like kind of like a staking type system. Also be rewarded specific NFTs on Binance Chain for those two, which the longer the mission, the higher, the more the rare the NFT that you get rewarded. But so in summary, I guess the type of people get involved would be more looking for that financial gain, as opposed to what we see on Wax, where it's more community just looking to be involved and start participating and do stuff.
Yeah, I kind of see Martin wanted to go after something, but you tell me.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump on in there. I mean, Dallas, you already said that, but what we're observing from AtomicHub, from our side, because we have a marketplace, there's a lot of features, a lot of requests, a lot of talk in different Discords and online. So what we're seeing is that it's just an extremely engaged community, and they are mainly the source for all the features. There have been surveys that we send out where we just get like instant 800 replies, or 4 digits even, which is pretty that's gold, you know. So our users are the most valuable assets when it comes to where should this go. Yeah, just wanted to add that.
But actually, it's valid things, and a very good transition with the kind of and it's going to be a question for you first, but for everyone as well. What kind of support we could expect from the Wax community when it's always important for our members, blockchain game developers, to know exactly what kind of support they could expect from a specific blockchain in terms of the community and what kind of documentation they could benefit from. Martin, first for you, how have you experienced Wax in terms of available tools, technical support, responsiveness of the community during your development?
Good question. Yeah, so I'm not working on the dev side. I do have some insights on the ticketing, but that's again just AtomicHub. So we should consider also the Wax team itself and also all the various tools that are in the ecosystem. If someone wants to develop a game, they usually reach out to one of the players to ask for support, and then there is like contact established. There are calls about it, discovery, and answering all the questions. So we usually have some kind of setup where we have a group with them, and now I'm talking just for AtomicHub, where we have a group of devs, and we go over all the questions and consult, educate what is needed, and not always that's what they need, but very often they're actually very impressed and look into that. So in terms of tools, there are some websites. I think developer.wax is one. We're also looking into providing a whole documentation. Yes, I hope that answered the question.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you very much, Martin. Ben, what do you think? Same question for you.
Yeah, so at the moment, I think stuff is not ideal. There could definitely be more. We recently started reworking a lot of the documentation, but we still have to add to it. Like something we did back in the day is a market template that could help others, because like we had experience in that, to help others start a marketplace to show how to use the public APIs and stuff. But more recently, we started our own development of smart contracts, and we would now start helping out projects and how to write smart contracts, how to write on Wax, if they wanted to reach out. But yeah, so the public resources for this, I think, have to be better. Even we have to mostly go to EOS.io developer resources to learn about that stuff. But I think there are many use cases on Wax where it could be standardized. And I think the coming Unity SDK is something that will also help a lot. But yeah, documentation can be a bit better. We still have to work on that. And yeah, so that's all I can say.
Yeah, that's good feedback. Thank you very much. I think it's a good visibility for everyone to be aware of that. And so Dallas, do you share the same feeling yourself?
Well, developers can always complain and say, yeah, there should be more documentation, and this should be better and that should be better. And I exactly, and one of those can always look for improvement and want improvement as well. It can always be better. The thing about our space, and when I think of Wax development resources in Wax, it's not just Wax. Like it's EOS.io. So you've got we've now got the EOS.io Network Federation, ENF, which is launching up and providing a collaboration between Telos, Wax, EOS.io, and UX network, I think. And Ultra, yeah. So they're coming together and they're cross-pollinating. So rather than you create a development tool which just works for Wax, you've got a development tool which might be built for Wax, but you get the benefit of using it on all the other chains. And the same thing happens in the other direction. And so it's really exciting to see that type of thing happen finally. And it's been quiet for a long time, but the community's finally taken the bull by the horns and shown some. So the internal leadership has bubbled up, and we're seeing some great things being built, and collaborations and multi-chain interactions between these EOS.io chains. I agree with what Martin and Ben have said, that there's documentation there, but a lot of the time you're having to hunt through things, and getting up-to-date documentation can be hard as well when things are changing and evolving underneath you, because the first thing that falls behind is the documentation. And often, I've been in this, developing in the space since the early days of the first launch of EOS. So I don't need to get a lot of support from many things anymore. So for me, a lot of the time, if I want to know something, I'll go and look through the smart contracts rather than documentation. I interact with the AtomicHub's atomic assets very often. And if I try to remember, what happens when you do this? What happens when you do that? Well, I'll go and look in the code of the smart contracts of atomic assets just to remind myself where that code goes, because I know that's the definitive source of truth. And not everyone can do that, especially when they're coming new to the space. So there's certainly opportunity for us to improve that and make it better. But the other thing that really helps is that we have really engaged 24-hour support from a really engaged customer of the community who are true fans in the space. They're the block producers, the developers, and they're building, and they love it. They love it for the tech. They're some of you would have to say they're truly in it for the tech. And so if you get into the Telegram channels and shoot a message out there or a question out there, you can get a response within a few minutes of someone coming back, oh yeah, I've done this, I've done that, and they'll walk you through exactly how to fix it if you need it.
Yeah, that's something actually I want to add on to. I mean, as you mentioned, you go to the source. Actually, that's something I meant with documentation. I think a lot of the tools that are being built would be great to have as open source. A lot of the examples that we're using. So the Atomic Market Contract is open source. There's some other stuff that is really important and really can help a lot for people to check out how to do something properly. I think also the drops contract is like not pre-minted drops. Like how do you get how you add assets to a pool? But we have at least the drop contract, and that shows perfectly how to interact with the random number generator on Wax. So that's something we recently also looked a lot at, like how do you use the random number generator, which is very important for some actions. But yeah, most importantly, how do you transfer assets? How do you react to receiving an asset? How do you react to receiving funds? Like if someone sends Wax over to the contract, what's the contract doing with that? Yeah, all this stuff exists and people like to point to it, but we don't have it really well aggregated. We still have to look for it.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in. Exactly, like it actually exists. AtomicAssets.io. You will find documentation. It's readable. It's not just for nerds. Developers, the developer page on Wax exists, and there's a lot of other resources. They might be scattered. So one obvious action item would be to create one repository where you can access everything. But there's documentation. So if you develop a game, just reach out. And we can connect.
Cool. That's always interesting to see, right? As things come along over time, all these different tools and documentations, they come in different corners, and maybe you don't have a full view of what's happening on the other side. But with the tight-knit community, as you describe it, I'm pretty sure that that aggregation of information will find its way. That really also makes me think of other ways of support. And Ben, this is a question for you because you have an experience with this. There's this, well, you can go to labs.wax.io, and it's basically, if I understand it correctly, a grants program that helps, well, actually a broad scale of how do you say, of initiatives that are good for the Wax ecosystem, leading all the way even to games. Right now we see a game there up for grant. Shadow Ages is the name. For the rest, I don't really know anything about it, but it's interesting to see a game there as well. But you've actually received a grant from that with NFTHive. I believe the process started in 2020 and led to funding in 2021. So what can you tell us about the process of applying for this, the receiving of the funds, the execution of the proposal? What was this like for you?
Yeah, so labs at Wax.io is could be a very great resource, I think. So it constantly receives new Wax. I don't know. It's coming from the savings account, I think. So the labs fund is constantly growing. It's growing faster, I think, than it can be spent at this moment. And it would be great to get funding to a lot of projects. So I wish people would use it more often. I did use it in the past before we were block producers for NFTHive. But I had to argue that we provide information or services that are for the common good. Like we have very complex analytics system that not only analyzes the trading activity of one market contract, but several on Wax. We also analyze the drops contract, like direct drops, and even the direct sales from Wax itself when they sell packs from their partners through credit cards. So we track all that. And we had to argue that, yeah, this is something that's not for our own profit, but we have, like, it's benefiting the chain, right? And that is one of the issues I have personally with the labs funds, is that it's only for non-profit projects. So I'm not sure if the game that's currently proposed will get funding, because a game is always something that is for profit. But I think if it's a worthwhile project, if it brings value to the chain, then why not? It could, in my opinion, receive the funds, because to get started, to develop a game, there's a lot of work that has to go into it at first, and it's not immediately profitable. And so we see a lot of projects just getting their funding through pre-game launch pack sales, and oftentimes people then really don't have any idea about the game. It's like, yeah, it's not a perfect model, because they do pre-pack sales, and then sometimes they do rug pulls and all that. And with the labs fund, I think games would have a better opportunity to get a funding started for their project. They would have to verify themselves. I think that will be very beneficial. The other thing is that it's still a bit centralized. So the Wax team reviews those, and not always in a very timely manner. I think the Shadow Ages game has been there for over a month now and has not been decided on yet. So there are two changes, like the team could work a bit faster. I think the OIG is also now reviewing proposals, which is good. And they could be for profit projects as well, to incentivize them to come to Wax, because we see this a lot on other chains like Solana and Polygon. They certainly pay a lot of money for games to get started on their blockchain, to use their blockchain, and I think Wax could do the same. And yeah, so that's something I would like to see. I think it's happening. I think that the mentality is changing. They will also support projects that are for profit, because it's not always from the beginning that they are actually profitable, and you have to invest a lot of time and energy into getting started, right? And that could help a lot, I think.
All right. Thank you, Ben, for your realistic breakdown of the grant system there. So the next question, no easy bridges here, so just hard question. The Wax Cloud wallet, it's very important for any blockchain that there is a good wallet underpinning that system that can be utilized there. The Wax Cloud wallet is used for Alien Worlds, and actually when you play the game, the first thing you get is a pop-up, and you need to make yourself the wallet, or you already of course have one, and it's fully integrated. Each interaction is committed to the chain, which is very special in itself, I would say. So this wallet and its functionality is very important to the gameplay on Alien Worlds. So Dallas, can you tell us what your experience has been so far with this wallet?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, Wax. So I guess when Alien Worlds first started, it was very attractive to users to come in, a play to earn mechanism, right? So people are going to earn however they can. And so when you have a game like that, then it's going to attract all sorts of people that use creative ways to see how they can earn as quickly as they can with multiple accounts or whatever they might want to do. So, you know, that's the reality. It's happening on all games with play to earn mechanics where the economics work out. And Wax makes it so easy to do fast transactions so cheaply. It's going to attract some of those sorts of people who are looking to maximize their profit as best they can. So the Wax Cloud Wallet provides a really effective way to make it very easy for users to onboard, like non-blockchain users who know how to log in with Facebook, know how to log in with Google, typical Web 2.0 stuff. They don't want to manage keys. They don't want to have to even look at keys. They just want to get in and play the game. It does a really good job at that. They also do a pretty good job at reducing some of the automated account creation by putting some hurdles in there with some recapture and things like that. We know we make that hard for them because we attract a lot of users. We know that, and we work very hard to try and counteract that and try and reduce the number of accounts and users that are being created, and putting an unnecessary burden on the system and loading things down. But the Wax Cloud Wallet has been amazingly useful for us to be able to get the users on board. But in general terms, it's a tremendous asset, that feature that Wax has. I think it's specific to Wax to have a Wax Cloud Wallet that's integrated at such a core level like that, to help new games and new dApps of any sort onboard new users into the system with a pretty low friction point. And it could be improved. Right now that you need to pay 5 Wax to create an account, which is a little bit tricky. It's a little bit of a chicken before the egg scenario. Like, where do you get your 5 Wax from before you create your account? So there's room for improvement in there, and the Wax wallet team is working on ways to make that smoother. At the same time, we're also exploring other opportunities so that we're not just restricted just using Wax Cloud Wallet, but we can open it up so that people can use different types of wallet. But at the same time, we need to be really careful about that, because we actually want to pay for the initial resources for our users to come on board, so they don't have to try and work out what is this CPU and net and RAM stuff. We just want to take care of that, and we actually have a system that takes care of that as a side system in the first use case, that inline actions that actually supply the CPU and net and RAM for the first initial actions, and give users some time to be able to play the game for effectively free, aside from the account creation. But we need to, from our point of view, we're looking at ways where we can open that up. But from the Wax Wallet point of view, I think it's a tremendous service that new blockchain dApps adopt to help get the users onboarded.
Yeah, just want to add to that. Like, I agree and completely agree with everything. Like, the Wax Cloud wallet makes it extremely easy. Sign up with Facebook, sign up with Google, and if you want to get the masses on board, that's not going to happen with MetaMask and some private keys.
Yeah.
Of course, there's always the choice for a non-custodial wallet if you want, but to just for the first start to get going, it's a great wallet. And actually, on create.atomichub.io, it's for free. You don't have to pay 5 wax. So we take care of that and to have some anti-bot protection in place.
That is really cool. So you finance those 5 wax for the ones that created there, or how is
how that's possible, I cannot talk about, but this is for now in that state. Yeah. So
yeah, okay.
If you want to create an account, you can go there and do that very easily. Yeah.
Okay, cool. You know, it's not a lot of money, but the gesture is really nice because then there's no money-wise barrier to entry. But yeah, that kind of I have a question here from Martin and Bennett. It's going to be the last question from our side here on this panel talk. We're getting over time, so thank you so much for your time as well. We've noticed that Pink.gg and Hive PP are on the top of the guild list on Wax. Something that I'd like to also specify more clearly what is meant exactly with this guild list, because as I understand it, it helps run the nodes for the delegated proof of stake system, but it also has to do with strategic contributions, which I think has been highlighted by the 3 of you during this whole talk already. So yeah, I'm just curious, what are your reasons for joining as a Wax guild with your companies Pink.gg and Hive PP, and how do you feel about the robustness of Wax as a delegated proof of stake mechanism? Is it strong enough against risk of hack and whatever to put a lot of valuable in-game assets on? Who would like to go first? Otherwise, I just pick Martin. You made the first sound.
Okay, so why we are a Wax guild? Pink.gg, that's how we started. Yeah, so I mean, there's some pre-story with Wax to that, but basically that's how we got on the map. We wanted to be a block producer, and as a block producer on Wax, there's like this OIG report at Office of the Inspector General that we talked about before, and if you contribute to the ecosystem, if you build out tools, if you add value to the users, to the network, then you will get a higher rating. Yeah, so that's the entities that are basically having a stake in it are also the ones that have to build for it. Yeah, so anyone can become a block producer. They just have to get elected in that sense. So we started as a block producer. And from there, AtomicHub, we built Atomic Assets, which was one of the early contributions. And then from there, AtomicHub just took off. On a side note, we wanted to build a game. Yeah. And for that, we were looking elsewhere, Ethereum, and a lot of the things that we were thinking of were just not possible, or just very clunky. And so Jona and Fabian, the founders of Pink.gg, they actually built the Atomic Asset standard to build a game. And then it just took off organically. But back to the question, if it's robust or not, because we're having a delegated proof of stake consensus system. First of all, it's very efficient. We have 21 block producers. And as opposed to other chains where you have a competitive consensus, where basically the nodes compete and waste a lot of energy to append the next block. On Wax, it's a collaborative consensus mechanism. So it's just much, much better. And they are elected, they are voted by all the stakeholders. So in that sense, of course, if 50% or more of the token holders would vote against that, but it's against their intrinsic interest. Yeah. So In that sense, you can always create this theoretical point, but I think it's actually very robust. Everyone is involved. Everyone is actually having a continuate contribution to the ecosystem. So there's visibility also, and people can check up on them.
Great. Ben, do you have anything to add from your perspective? End of the talk. To add from your perspective on that?
Nothing to hide. No, I can only agree with that. Yeah, as Martin mentioned, there's always a lot of talk about delegated proof of stake being the weakest consensus algorithm in terms of security, which is a sacrifice made for speed and throughput. But to counter that, really, is, I mean, which delegated proof of stake blockchains do we have? Like, we have EOS, we have Tron, we have Wax. I think Wax is the youngest of the three and has been running for 3 years without interruption, without major incidences. EOS even longer, and Tron as well. Like, in terms of robustness, I don't know if anything really compares if you don't want to do proof of work, which is just wasting energy to compete against each other. I completely agree with that. The block producers on Wax, they are all independent companies. They all share a common incentive to keep the chain running as smooth as possible. We actually cooperate if there's like an issue on one block producer and they have found a problem in their system, with, I don't know, confirming blocks or something. We usually look at it all together and try to solve the issue, because we all have an interest in fixing this error and to make the chain more robust. And yeah, so there's really not an incentive, and there's like the chance of outsiders coming in and doing something malicious and getting the majority of the tokens to vote them in 15 times in order to get the majority of the active block producers is very unrealistic, I think. People who are worried about this, they're probably Bitcoin maximalists who love proof of work, who love wasting energy, and who love slow and expensive blockchains.
Yeah. Guys, as Roran said, actually, thank you very much for the extended time that we got together. We really appreciate it, to capitalize on your feedback, expertise, activities that you have, the three of you, to help us understand better what does it mean to build on Wax when we have a blockchain gaming project, and to cover any tech capabilities, structure, ecosystem, but support as well. So I would like to thank you all, and obviously as well as each time BlockMinds teams to help us drive this panel. And I will say it's always a pleasure to give some credibility about what you're doing and try to capitalize on that talk to publish something behind. So we're going to be able to publish something through the conversation we just had and tackle every aspect of what you just mentioned. So thank you again, guys. And I will say, have a great day for some of you. Have a great evening for one of you. And thank you very much again.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.